words before we jump in. So firstly, this recording is for me to take notes. And then secondly, if you're okay with it, I would also cut it into maybe some shorts and post it on LinkedIn, if that's okay for you.
All fine.
Very cool. Okay. So a bit of background. As mentioned, I've been out of the game for 6 months and now I'm back in the game. And I have been witnessing AI explode, like truly explode with so many tools and models and cool things happening. And I was like, okay, what's the best way for me to get in the swing of things? Well, start using them. But as I started using them, I fell into a lot of traps. And I was thinking there must be people who have been using these things for about 6 months now who already fell into these traps, who can kind of give me a head start. So I wanted to talk to people like yourself who use any Gen AI tool to either become faster or to unlock capabilities you didn't have before, and kind of trying to understand what you use, how you use it, what you use it for, what's good, what's bad, so I can kind of take a shortcut myself. Before I start, I would ask you a little profiling question.
Profile away.
How technical are you on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not technical at all, 5 being senior full stack engineer?
Okay, that's a very hard question because, like, depending on the point of view, I'm a 5 or a 1.
Interesting.
I'm not a full stack dev, so not a 5, but I'm a mathematician trained 25 years ago, and I'm an AI data science researcher, lecturer, developer. So on a very other field, I'm very technical, but I'm not a developer. So that's kind of like for most people a little bit confusing, but I'm the math side and all of that. And I'm doing my job developing data and AI strategies now for over 20 years. And that, of course, is a technical, but it's a different technical than think of a full stack dev.
Right.
I'm so not a full stack dev. Everyone is afraid if I touch the code because, like, that's a nightmare because I'm like, I think I deleted everything. So I'm that kind of, yes, I can code and read multiple languages, but that's really, nobody wants that.
Okay, so you can. So basically, when you work with a tool like Cursor or Lovable or Replit, you see that code. You do understand what the thing is doing.
Yes, I do understand it. So if I use these tools, I have a deeper understanding, but I'm not a full stack dev. So I would say I'm kind of like very much. I'm not a 1, but I'm also not a 5. But of course, I'm somewhere there, and I'm a kind of like a pro to understand the code, how you develop that shit. Yes. But it was never my forte and is not fun, and I don't like it. So I'm much more a 1 on that side.
Okay, I would put you at a 3 or 4. That's where I would put you. Okay, cool. Thank you. Then the next question, out of all of these tools that are out there, what is your favorite one? And what is the coolest or the most useful thing you did with it?
I'm a big diehard fan of Claude. I love Claude.
Okay.
I love Claude. I would say if you use any kind of consumer-facing tool, and let's be honest, even Cursor AI is a consumer-facing tool because it's nothing you would deploy in a company bigger than 20 people. So that's kind of like consumer class. Claude is, for me, the best tool as an all-in-one solution. It is perfect as text. It can code quite well. You have a good idea of with the projects and the artifacts, and you don't have all the shit that ChatGPT is annoying us.
Like what?
Like memory function and that bullshit. That's just awful. So from that standpoint and from the development, from how good the LLMs implemented is, I would say Claude. If you really just want to pick one tool, it's Claude. If you want to have a certain adaptability, because you know I'm probably want to use also other tools, then it's 𝗬𝗏. 𝗬𝗏 is a UX front end kind of, where you can pick and choose your models you work inside, but it's consumer built. So it's kind of like not like a techie stack. So it's literally 𝗬𝗏. And you can use the latest Alibaba model, but you can also use ChatGPT models. So that's a really cool in-between solution.
That's nice. Okay, and that's kind of, is it a bit like perplexity, sort of, where
No,
I
no, no,
also
no,
just
no,
talked?
no, no,
No,
no, no,
okay.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Everyone knows me that I am a love-hate relationship with perplexity. Yes, you has search capabilities like 𝘊𝗫𝗃 and perplexity, but it's surely not like perplexity, which in the end is a search engine which works with LLMs included. That's a very different approach than working with LLMs and having sometimes a search capability.
Got it. Okay, right. Okay, so yeah. So a bit more broader, I guess, 𝗬𝗏𝘀𝗀. You could do like a variety of things.
Yes, you can like think about it. There is in data science, we have something which is called problem data model match. And while that, of course, is in a consumer front-facing LLM, you're not calculating confusion metrics and structured data and stuff like that. Hey, does my model fits the data? But the concept is still true. A certain problem needs a certain model, and of course, it needs data, aka good prompt and context.
Yeah.
And some models, just in the difference between a classical LLM or an LLM based on reasoning, that's already a difference. But Claude has a very different personality, is trained to a certain degree different than ChatGPT or say Grok. So, or even a Chinese model like Alibaba's Qwen or so. And depending on that, it makes sense that you can pick and choose. So if you're in the exploration phase like yourself and want to get up into the game, I would say go with you, play around, have a feeling, and then figure out what your perfect setup is, depending on your job description.
Because this is one of the questions I've been battling with, and I've been asking people, how do you choose which model to use for which use case, right? Because I have a variety of use cases. Yes. One of them is really deep research, like desktop research, looking at studies, looking at academic journals. Then there's a voice of customer research that's much more like scraping the web and looking at quotes and seeing are they relevant. But then there's a different use case of you use like as a sparring partner, right, to create really good documentation, to think through strategies, so like somebody to talk to. And then there's really building landing pages, right, like vibe coding prototypes, etc. And these are all different use cases, and I can use a variety of tools, but under these tools lie models and modes and all the stuff. And I was like, how do I pick the right one? Is that something that 𝗬𝗏𝘀𝗀 helps me with?
Yes, 𝗬𝗏𝘀𝗀 gives you an idea. So the problem is, first of all, there is no one tool or one model fits it all. That's a fucking marketing myth they put out there. Just not true. So you have to understand kind of what you now presented are the classical things. So thinking I want to produce text, but mainly text based on research I've already done. That's the classical approach of a classical LLM. And then it kind of like really depends how you want to which language you prefer. Claude has a better language profile. So normally you probably go into a Claude 3.5 or 3.7. And in you have the possibility to run your prompt with the same context on different models and kind of like make your own little testing game and figure out, okay, I think I like that style, or hey, that's from a hallucination standpoint way better than another model. So you have kind of like an idea of testing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. And you mentioned Claude. Is this more because you understand it on a theoretical level as a professor, or do you also use them in your day-to-day work?
Claude is my one best buddy. I have running a 𝗬𝗏𝘀𝗀 if I'm not using the architecture we have in the backend. Then I use Claude, then I use ChatGPT, and I have a U account. And of course, I love 𝗲𝗁 because I'm a mathematician. I cannot build slides for the fucking dear life of it. I hate it. And 𝗲𝗁 is just perfect making PowerPoint presentations.
Oh, okay, great. And what is your core use case with Claude? Like, what is the main thing you do with it all the time?
First, I think I have different use cases, and I use Claude in very different settings. So first of all is I have a cup of coffee in the morning with Claude. So I voice prompt Claude. So I use the voice functionality to think about problems like, can we Frankenstein that algorithm and give me some ideas on that? So like a classical brainstorming sparring partner. That's one heavy use case because like, hey, you get stuck in your own brain, or you have like you don't have like on hand the right partner to discuss things because like people are busy, weird shit. So that's a perfect use case for that. So Claude is that. Then, of course, I'm also have to rely on, I'm text heavy. I'm a manager, kind of like, let's be honest. I'm one of these senior management people. Yes, I'm a consultant. I have my own company, but I talk fucking all day. And then there has to be a keynote here, and then there has an offer revival here, and something like that. So I'm also very text heavy. So structuring from a slam to a keynote to my own thoughts to what the fuck ever, that's kind of like where Claude really comes in. And then, of course, I have the problem sometimes also that my dev team is not talking to me because they have different, more important things than helping their boss with weird code shit. So, of course, Claude, especially if it's fast, dirty Python code. Yes, I have a GitHub Copilot account too and a Cursor AI code, but that's for the code work. But if it's I'm in a mood and I'm especially on the go, then it's literally Claude on the phone. It's literally freaking no joke Claude on the phone. That is for me super helpful. It's on the go. I can work with that. And yes, I'm a bit weird in that sense that Claude doesn't answer, is not talking to me back. But weird shit, I'm faster in reading than anyone can read it to me. So I enjoy it more if I talk fast into the machine, and that is fast typing. That's the better process for me. Yeah. Other people are more like going with audio, then that is not possible currently in Claude. Then you have to go the ChatGPT route when if you want a voice connection.
Right.
And if I want to structure my thoughts very properly and also want to kind of like mind mapping and stuff like that, then it's 𝗧𝗏𝗀𝘀𝗀. That's a Google product where you can put in quite a lot of research and then produce its overviews and brainstorming cards and a podcast for you. So that's a very helpful tool. 𝗧𝗏𝗀𝘀𝗀.
Okay. So many things you use. I guess you should. Very interesting.
I think I get paid using them. Yeah, kind of. And I'm a lazy mathematician. The most laziest person you will ever meet are mathematicians. Of course, we're using the shit out of that.
Right, exactly. But those are the most curious people at this point, right? Because you have a lot to gain and you don't get stuck in your head.
Time to drink coffee and not hang around in weird meetings. And yes, of course.
Right. Very nice. And so you mentioned 𝗼𝗏, you said you use that as well every day, basically, or?
I use my AI tools every day, constantly. Of course, if I'm like giving in meetings all day, that's a different thing. But we have transcription tools if the clients want them. We have meeting tools. It depends really on my day. But classically, a day without an AI tool is a weird day. Then I did a yoga retreat, probably.
Okay, but if I understand, it's mainly as a sparring partner, brainstorming, and to work better with content, basically repurpose content, structure. Okay. Yeah.
Because like you have to understand that I'm in a classical CXO position. We're talking all day. If I go into dev or do a deep dive on a weekend, then of course I'm using more code and more dev. So, but let's be realistic. That's not my Monday till Friday.
Right. Right.
That's my Saturday on Sunday nerding out.
Okay, so on Saturday and Sunday you are nerding out. Which tools, like vibe coding tools or whatever, have you nerded out with, and which one?
So depending on the code, interestingly enough, it's depending on, do I want to improve certain stuff in a code? Then of course GitHub Copilot. Cursor AI, something like that. So where I can use my more understanding of that to improve code, to get better, or I'm like, I cannot code in React as an example. That's not a language I could do. So I would end up in vibe coding mode in Claude. And Claude is really, really good for that. Yes, I have test runs done with OpenAI Pro. That's the $200 version. But for my use cases, the benefit wasn't there to understand that I pay $200. So that's just was that.
And can a person like me, who is not very technical, so I've been a product manager for many years, I understand concepts, but I cannot code and I cannot read code. Can I vibe code in Claude, or would you say, no, go with 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝘀𝗀?
I would say start with, the thing is, 𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 is also built up on a different LLM. Go with always in your first steps with the poorest form you can have. Because you need to understand that to a certain degree. The problem with vibe coding And I finally have done wipe coding for 25 years because I'm a trained mathematician. And I always had a dev literally sitting fucking next to me in my starting of my career.
Pair programming.
So I always wipe coded because like I was telling him always what I needed. But of course, that was a sparrings partner who had a deep technical understanding. So that's not totally the concept of wipe coding, but from an idea. And the idea of wipe coding is that I would always say, go try something like Claude to get to a prototype level. And then, because like realistically, full deployment with these tools without any technical knowledge aren't doable. It's just because there is no testing. I don't have to tell you what a product manager we're running around to testing shit and all of that. That's just not working.
Yeah.
Or prototyping, MVPing, and then just the idea is, in the end, there is no perfect solution. And you just have to find a starting point. And for me, it's always, I'm a trained mathematician. I'm not really a trained data scientist, a trained data scientist. You know, the poorest form you get your hands on, like raw data, that's what we prefer. And that's, you have to think of the models. Right. Yes, Ker is a lovable, that's cool, but be very specific. They have a different scope than a general approach. And start on the general approach to understand, how is my tool stack performing? And yes, in the end, you will probably have a tool stack, $20 here, $20 here, and probably come up to $100. But first of all, your output, if you know how to prompt, will be better. You will be faster. You can do more multiple things. And you can prototype by yourself. But let's be realistic. If you brief a team as a product manager and still are trying to explain in your brain how the prototype looks, that's one of the longest tasks. But if you do that with AI and show your prototype and then give it to dev, that's way faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me, like, it's very interesting in the discovery space, right? So I work with a lot of small startups and scale-ups where discovery has always been considered too expensive because it's too many resources, and now somebody can do it all by themselves, right? So I can whip up a prototype very easily within a couple of hours. That's very interesting. So this weekend, when you were vibe coding in Claude, what did you build?
This week I did not wipe coding Claude. This week I nerded out on some new papers. But then that's also helpful because then I tried to change these. It was a new DeepSeek paper which came out, and I nerded out with that hard. And then of course I still need help, kind of like either, hey, if I would put that into a code, how does that look to see the behavior? That's what I did this weekend.
So you just
kind of like based on a paper and show me how a Python code would look like that to understand deeper how something like that would be executed.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying this, like uploading documents to it and say, just look into this document and answer me this question, right? Like a very simple one.
Be careful with uploading documents. First of all, try to stay away the fucking hell from PDFs. These are not formats that should be used in that shit.
Okay.
Try to make it into a markdown format. Okay. Because a PDF by the nature is defined as non-readable, not as readable.
Okay.
And also remember, the idea is, yes, that helps, but sometimes it's even better to first have a rough read through to the document before you give it to it. Don't underestimate that hallucinations is a problem. Context should improve hallucination. If you overgo with the context, everything goes to shit in the other direction and all of that. So it is literally always, if you now starting, the best advice I can give you is start in your field of expertise. Because you really have to get a feeling of how models behave in your field. Because depending on how much data the models trained on are in your field, they're either extremely good or they're extremely bad. And no benchmark out there can tell you that.
Yeah, I think one of the powers, right, is that you need to be able to judge whether the output is good.
Yes.
That's the unlock, right? So you need to be able to evaluate that. So if you can't...
So LLMs are exponentially enabling experts. And most people misuse them as like enabling them in your weaknesses. So it's not strengthening the strengths, it's covering my weaknesses. And that's a fucking dumb idea.
Yeah. That's a nice quote. Yeah. Okay. And when you did, I just want to go back to this vibe coding thing. When you did build something, what did you build? I'm just very curious.
Normally I build something like ideas, kind of like what kind of like clients need, like, hey, can we build up a easy calculator for return on investment on a Gen AI return on investment or something like that. And I have certain ideas in my mind, and that's way easier with my unstructured blah to put into an LLM and not go my devs on my on their nerves, and they're sitting in the meeting like, Barbara, what?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not a good exploration. So
Yeah.
something like that. Or literally kind of like I Frankenstein algorithms with it. So I think about, like, from a mathematical standpoint, how I can Frankenstein a certain algorithm, and then let's start coding that. That's also very data nerdy, but a very nice use case.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah, I found the same with like that it's so easy that you can just whip something up if you have a vague idea of what it is, because I've been so I do a lot of discovery, and I've been inviting a lot of people to interviews, right? So I write a lot of people, say, hey, you're in my target audience, can we jump on an interview? And there the response rate is generally low. 1 to 5% of people want to jump on an interview because it's vague and it's like, what do you want to talk to me about? But I found that response rates are a bit higher when I say, I have a prototype. I'm not going to sell you anything.
Yeah.
It's not ready, but do you want to help me build this, like shape this thing, right? Like you can tell me what it should do. Do you want to play with it and give me feedback and help me shape it? Response rates are higher.
Yeah.
And now I can just go out and ask for people to play
and
with
that's
the prototype.
Perfect. And like, it is literally kind of like what I always see with people, and I'm the same. If I'm using human resources, I think of them as much more valuable. So I don't want to overload my devs with my weird, shitty idea I cannot even formulate in my brain. Like, and I need like 20 minutes for blame bulb. But that's perfect with an LLM, because you can use an LLM to structure your thoughts. You take these thoughts, go with them into vibe coding, and you're not misusing human resources who probably should just have a fucking break from you and just have a coffee and look into the pretty sun. I think that's one of the most misconceptions with working with AI. It's not hustle culture. It should be the point where you finally have time to enjoy a bit of nature and have a Sunday stroll because the machine is working on it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And another benefit I think about LLM is that you should be rough with it and harsh with it, right? Like you don't have to worry about...
You can be very, and I'm a bloody blunt German. I'm also autistic. So LLMs are perfect. Why? Because they work like that. Be explicit. Everything you think implicitly is clear. It is not for that fucking thing.
Yeah.
Think about it. The example I always take. So we showed up dressed at least partially above, not knowing was it below, but that's okay. But we showed up dressed. In extreme, I didn't send you in your invite. Hey, please, show up dressed.
Pants. Yeah.
With pants?
Yeah.
It's not something I needed to do. It was kind of clear. If you think about an LLM, in the worst case, it's not clear for them because it's an implicit meaning.
Yes, but I found, maybe this is totally wrong, because I've been working with developers, right? Firstly in feature factories, and then luckily more and more like product engineers is kind of where I've worked with. But I started very much in these feature factories with this idea of like having tickets in Scrum, and the ticket should have every single requirement, right? Like even stupid, like there should be a button. The button should be clickable. If you click the button, it does something, right? Like really spell out every stupid thing. And then if you didn't, they were like, yeah, you're a bad product owner because you should have spelled it out. And then I moved more and more to saying, no, we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to give you a lot more context about the why, about the user feedback, and then you can figure out all the detailed requirements, right? That's kind of where I want to go. But a lot of developers still aren't very good with that because they're used to this other culture where they don't get context, but they get like orders. But I found like so far when I've been vibe coding and I use Replits, for example, it did a pretty decent job at filling in the blanks, right? I didn't do the perfect PRD as I have been doing with developers, and it spat out something pretty okay.
Yes and no. Yes, that works. And especially if you are purposeful with not filling in the blanks. The problem I always have is I want you all to be total control freaks when using LLMs. So probably your family thanks you because now you're in a control freaks channel somewhere else. Who knows? My sometimes probably does. But you have to be an inner control freak. And that's kind of like a harsh mindset shift because in reality, you have to test run both ways in the exact way, kind of like that button, clickable. If that, yes, it will do a decent job because no LLM will not do a decent job.
Yeah.
You have to think the other way around. These things are capable at everything. The question is, does it make sense? And how good is it?
Yeah.
It's not a question of what are they capable. No, they can do everything.
Yeah.
But it's not that they're doing it well or good or that it makes sense. Like you don't do a time series analysis with an LLM. That's just bullshit. It will code Python to help you out with that. Not a pretty cause for that. But they can do everything. And your job is now, and that's also one of the always takeaways I always drill down on people. The machine cannot adjust to your work. You have to adjust your work with the machine. Yeah. So you have to find out that in one tool and in one use case, a very broad concept, a very, hey, fill in the blanks, let's explore, works extremely well. While in the other project, you have to be even more awful than with any junior dev.
Yeah, yeah. And I found it
like spell out, and in line 5, it's we start with a capital M.
Yeah, yeah. And so if you want to build something with Claude, do you start with like a fully fledged PRD where kind of like the whole structure of the thing is there, or do you just start with feature 1 and build from there?
I even start very differently. I normally use one chat where we kind of like brainstorm how that should look. Kind of like, because I have, of course, like I have a certain idea of architecture and PhDs and all of that in my brain, but I don't really know if that's a good idea because like that's not my main job. So I use one chat to brainstorm, sparring, and explore. And as soon as we're done with that, I open up a new chat or even a new tool, and then work my way into that.
Okay. And then, so you've already done the brainstorming. So in the other chat, do you throw over the full concept, which is kind of like a big PRD?
I normally start on the 2 extremes end. 0 shot, I want to build that, do. And on the other end, I do, here's the full concept. And then I have a look at how that works. I always go with 0-1 approaches.
Okay. So like 2 extremes, sort of.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way. Yeah. Middle ground is really not something LLMs like.
Okay, interesting. Because I found, and this is maybe wrong, like I started with a pretty decent PRD, maybe a bit middle groundy. But I did that, and then it came out with something okay. But then I asked it to iterate on it, and it's like, hey,
that's not working.
And it totally broke. Exactly. The code
but
crashed.
That's kind of like the misunderstanding of how generative AI works.
Okay.
Generative AI and the awful ideas of iterating your output is just, I'm very sorry, that's not how that works. I don't want to call it dumb because then you think you are dumb, which you are not.
I'm fine. I can deal with it. Don't worry.
No, it's kind of like, think about it like it's kind of like that's a dumb work way to do, not you are dumb. I just want to be very clear here. The thing is, generative AI is always generating new.
Yeah.
So these iterative workways, that's how we work with humans.
Yeah.
AI, LLMs are not humans.
Yeah.
They are really dumb. They have 500,000 PhDs, 6 MBAs, and will drown in a fucking puddle while calculating thermodynamics.
Yeah.
So if you iterate on that, if you're at a level of, let's say, 70% or so, and it's just like minor adjustments, then that could make sense. But if your output is not there, you have to go back to optimizing the input.
Yeah. Okay. You just start again.
Yeah. Just like, or take your feedback, what you wanted, start a new project or chat, and put that into your original input in.
Yeah. So you just,
and that normally helps kind of like, because that iterative work is how we work, but the water flow iterative, no, LLMs are not there.
Yeah. Okay. But 70%, 80% there you can like chafe a little bit.
The problem is, and that's depending on the use case. Sometimes you can get from 70, 80% to at least 90% inside of an LLM. Other times just be happy with the 80% and fix it by hand.
Yeah, because I felt it a bit like rolling the dice, right? So
Yes.
I've also just started over quite a lot, and I've started over on different models and kind of like rolling the dice and again and again. And then comes in this part of me being able to judge what is good.
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of like, that's back to, you have to really understand, hone on your skills of you being the expert in that field and you being the one kind of like using that.
Yeah. Wow, thank you. I know we're 3 minutes over time, but I learned so much from this. This was extremely interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, if there's ever anything I can do for you, you know where to find me.
All good. All good.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.